Well, we have an expert on today that I'm excited to have talk about his journey because he has been in a company that I know has been leading the way in regards to omega-3. He was actually the global educator and brand ambassador for the company that, of all the tests I've ever done, has had some of the best tests ever, Nordic Naturals. He was also vice president of human nutrition and vice president of North American, I'm trying to read without my glasses, Urban Spice, and has over 30 years of experience with dietary supplements. And you know what? He has been the expert that has been on many of the top news channels, has appeared in over 6,000 radio, TV, and podcast interviews around everywhere, right? Because he was that expert. And in April of last year, he hears about what Zinzino is doing and decided to partner up with Zinzino as a partner and is now a director in Zinzino. I am so honored that he has come on to talk to us today. So please, let's give a warm Zinzino welcome to the amazing Stuart Tomc. Hey, Stuart.
Oh, thank you so much, Carla. It's such an honor to be with you and to be on your show today. I'm so blessed to be here with you.
It's kind of fun when you said that. You said, it's Carla, this is a show. We have a show. I'm like, well, I just do a training each week because it's so important to hear all these amazing stories. And actually, your story of how you came to Zinzino is quite amazing because you have been like the omega expert out there, training like 70 different shows, the global educator about omega-3 for one of the most amazing omega-3s out there. I have to say, of all the tests that I've ever done, the Nordic Naturals has always came out on top. But yet you saw something different. So we're going to talk about that. Why don't you tell a little bit about what you did before a year and a half ago?
Well, thank you. I started my journey in the natural product industry in the 1980s. Before I was even working in a health food store, there was a really important raw food activist. Her name is Karen Calabrese. I always have to give her credit. She kind of took me under her wing. I was a very sick 16-year-old, and she helped to, bring me back to health. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. And then soon after that, I was working at a health food store in Chicago called Sherwin's Health Food Store. And if anyone has ever been to Chicago back when we had Sherwin's Health Food Store, it was before Whole Foods, GNC, and Vitamin Shop. It was remarkable. We had naturopathic doctors working there and chiropractors. It was one of the first multi-million-dollar health food stores. After that, I was really privileged to help build North American Herb and Spice. You might remember the little oil of oregano product called Oreganol P73. So I got to work side by side with the great Dr. Cass Ingram for many, many years. That's how I got into, broadcasting. One time he was too busy to do a radio show and he was like, Stuart, you go ahead and do it. And I was scared to death and I did it. And then I ended up becoming sort of the face of North American Herb and Spice. That was about a decade. And then I was recruited to Nordic Naturals. Where I started out originally just part-time. It went very, very well, and then I went full-time. I was with Nordic for almost a decade. And it was such an honor, Carla. I got to help build their medical and scientific advisory board. I got to attend the global organization for EPA and DHA, and then the International Society for the Study of Fatty Acids and Lipids. That's fun. If you ever have a chance to go to an ISFAL meeting, they are incredible. So I spent 10 years with Nordic. I helped to launch the product in every English-speaking country around the world. I was broadcasting, say, 70 plus radio shows for them every month for almost a decade, and then spent half of those 10 years in a hotel room on the road, traveling with all the brokers, going to the big trade shows, and going to all of the stores. After that, I was actually recruited into a company called CV Sciences. CV Sciences was one of the first publicly traded cannabinoid companies. and we launched the brand Plus CBD, which was my brainchild, and it became the #1 selling CBD in the natural product channel. And interestingly enough, that's where I met the person who actually recruited me into Zinzino, Mr. Larry Raskin. Mr. Larry Raskin was on the board of directors at CV Sciences, sort of took me under his wing and mentored me as well. And so after a long time at CV Sciences, I then went back to Nordic Naturals to build a television studio for them inside of their incredible building in Watsonville. If you've ever seen what the Nordic headquarters looks like, it looks like a Norwegian village. It's so cute. So we were building this big TV studio in there, and long story short, when everybody realized that what I was trying to do was to hijack all of the traffic and all of the business and send it directly to NordicNaturals.com, that wasn't something that the other divisions were as excited about. Now, the founder of Nordic Naturals, who was a very good friend of mine, Mr. Opheim, he just recently passed away, so we miss him a lot. He thought it was a great idea. And so anyway, long story short was when they finally walked into my office, this was just over, a year and a half ago, a little bit longer, and said, look, we're taking a different direction, Stuart. We know you want to go direct to consumer, but we want to go into mass market. So we love you, but we've decided that, we're going to eliminate this position. Anyway, I was looking for work. And I was interviewing with other dietary supplement companies. In fact, it's a fun story. I even thought I was going to be hired by Zinzino. I had a meeting, which I'll never forget, with Oren Sali and Dog. And there was, I believe, Art Jonak was on the call at the time too. I know Larry was there. Art Napolitano was there. I don't know if Dr. Clayton was there. I think he was. And I was interviewing to get kind of the spokesperson job for Zinzino. And that's when they turned the tables on me. It was really, really brilliant. And Orion said to me, look, you're going to impact more people, and you're going to be able to help more people and help your family and help yourself if you actually become a partner instead of being on corporate. And I'll never forget this, Carla. I said to him, imagine this whole call with all the leaders of Zinzino. And now I admire and respect and love these people. I said, under no circumstances am I going to join a network marketing company. I have multi-level marketing derangement syndrome at the highest level. I am never, ever, ever going to sell this stuff to my uncle. And I'll never forget what Larry said. Larry said, please ignore the bald guy. I'll slap him later. Don't listen to him. And that's how I ended up here in Zinzino, and I've never been happier.
Okay, so we got to unpack some of that because, Ola Ida, who actually made the balanced products and had a company with that, people have actually been a little bit after him. How come you partnered up with the direct sales company? And he said this kind of that same thing. He had this wasn't going to be a part of anything until he realized the impact that Zinzino was making. And when he talked with Orion and he said, if this is the way to get this out, because this is a revolutionary, and he knew it was revolutionary. He knew it was, and he had been trying for 4 years to get the word out of what Zinzino could do with this test. And he had it in Scandinavia in the health food stores. That's where it started, right? But there's 3,000 products in there. So when he said that word of mouth just made sense to him, then Zinzino took it over and within 4 months sold more in 4 months than he had done for 4 years. And so I want you to tell me, and now you're in that, so we don't have to go over it. You're never going to do it because here you are. So let's hear a little bit about when you started realizing, because you have been Mr. Omega, you've been the global educator talking about that. And I think most professionals would say omegas are important. Omegas are good. People should be taking omegas. I talked to somebody who his doctor told him you had heart issue, take some omega-3. So you have been that guy that has been going out saying this is the best omega-3. So what was the change when you started hearing more about what Zinzino was offering?
Well, First of all, I was already interested in test-based nutrition. I was lucky. I was the first person to introduce the omega-3 blood spot test to Nordic Naturals. We were working with a different laboratory at the time. It was Doug Bebus, Lipid Labs, and he's just a remarkable PhD omega-3 expert. He actually was the caretaker and student of Ralph Holman. Ralph Holman from the University in Minnesota actually coined the term omega-3. So I was working with Lipid Labs, and it was the rate limiting factor of how we won the fish oil wars. Because all of our competitors were talking about, our formula is different. There was this massive debate going on between ethyl esters and triglycerides, and then the krill oil came in. We had to bring them to the Better Business Bureau for making false and misleading claims, right? One little tiny pill, that's all you need, if anyone remembers that ad. So the blood spot test was how we won the fish oil wars. We used to show people the results. It was a different indice. I think ours is far superior, the stuff from Vitas Analytical Services, just a little plug for us. But I was able to show people, where are you? What is your number? And I remember having this chart that you could eat this pile of flax meal, because we know that we poorly convert ALA into EPA and DHA, or you could eat 5 cans of sardines a week, maybe 6, or you could take this pile of omega-3 fish oil pills. So I was already very involved in the omega-3 blood spot testing. But it was reading some of what Professor Clayton had wrote, the concept of how the Inuit paradox was also including the polyphenols from the fluorotannins from the marine food web, and it was not just EPA and DHA. And so Zinzino took me to school. And one of my favorite teachers is Socrates, right? What do I know? And so I want to be perennially curious. And even though I was trained by some of the best omega-3 scientists and have become friends with some of the top omega-3 scientists in the world, I had never heard that story. I had never heard that when you looked at the whale blubber, it had polyphenols and EPA and DHA, and that they had oversimplified again, and they had reduced the Inuit diet to just these 2 molecules. So once my brain started to wrap itself around that, right, like the polyphenols wrap themselves around EPA and DHA to increase the bioavailability, wow, I really learned something. And we had another call, Carla, and I recorded it, and I can't find it in my recordings. I wish that I could for posterity. I had many of the experts that are part of our team now that are former Nordic Naturals alum. Scott Minton, PhD, who was the chief science officer at Nordic Naturals, who's also a Zinzino partner. And at the time, we had Dr. Michael Garko. He was on the call. He was the host of Let's Talk Nutrition, which was one of the biggest health talk shows in the world. Colonel Dr. Michael Lewis, who I'm sure you've heard of at this point, the author of When Brains Collide, the expert on traumatic brain injury and omega-3. Steve Schmitz, who runs Supplement Safety Solutions, MD, MPH, and there were several others. And we were all on the call with Dr. Paul Clayton, all on the Zoom. And we wanted
the top experts in their fields,
yes,
in regards to brain health and omegas and everybody there. And as you said, you became the student. Listen.
Oh, I loved it. I was spanked. I was schooled. It was I was put on the timeout mat. It was just fantastic because I thought I knew, and I love not knowing. There's a freedom in that. And I remember we were all kind of intellectually kind of sparring with Paul Clayton, and I was a super fan of his before. I knew of his research before, which is another fun story. I'll share that later. But we were just, beguiled because he was teaching us things that we had never, ever thought of before. And I want everybody to know that, he really is one of the leading experts of nutrition of all time. He coined the term pharmaconutrition at Cambridge. And then he went to work at Oxford with Sir Michael Crawford. Are you familiar with his work, Carla?
No, tell me.
Okay, Grandpa DHA. He ran the Mother and Child Foundation with Desmond Tutu. His book is called The Driving Force, and it takes you from stardust to DHA. It is an incredible, incredible book. And so knowing Dr. Clayton's background and his pedigree and who he had studied with, I couldn't not listen. But I loved hearing something that I had never heard before ever in any omega-3 circle. At all of the science conferences, I had never heard anyone say that when you filter out mercury, PCBs, dioxins, fire retardants, and microplastics, when you're removing the bad stuff, you're also inadvertently removing the good stuff. You're removing the appropriate antioxidant in nature. And it was Dr. Clayton that pointed out to me that vitamin E, like Edward, which you see in the Nordic product or in other products, and then there's a little bit of vitamin E in ours, but we have all the polyphenols, and then rosmarinic acid, which comes from rosemary, are not the appropriate antioxidants in the food web. That's not how they occur in nature. And so there were times where I was digesting this and I thought, wow, I really don't know this subject at all. And so he helped me understand.
Wow. I mean, just that. Just hearing you say that, I hope everybody is like, okay. And for me, lay people, it's amazing for me to hear the experts say, okay, I really don't know what I've been spending my life teaching in. And I think that's a good point for so many people that are trying to talk to their doctors and their health practitioners and all of the chiropractors out there, people who, they've spent their life learning. Because I had the same thing happen when my son had changes. I was like, okay, what is this stuff? And I went straight to my doctor, and my doctor crossed his arms, and he was just like, well, Carla, I just trust in pharmaceuticals. And I changed doctors because I was like, wait, because they weren't hungry like you. If you want to know the truth. And as I started saying, Dr. Paul said, science is science, right? So I love the fact. So what about if people had health professionals, or they've got people they're trying to talk to, or health professionals are watching this? What would you say to them? You were the expert, Stuart. What should we be telling these people of what Zinzino has been doing?
Well, I love the name of our company so much, Zinzino. It means a small piece with great value. I love that. And this is a small piece of tremendous value. There were a couple of paradoxes in the Inuit paradox that were worth exploring that I never understood. Why is it that the epidemiological observations of eating fish was just almost irrefutable? And then when we purified fish oil and we denatured it and we reduced it down to just a few of the fatty acids, why is it that it wasn't working in clinical trials the way that we had expected it to? And I will encourage everyone to please read the blog article From Algae to Omega that Dr. Clayton wrote on his blog. Do you remember that one, Carla?
Yes, and that, just so people know, Dr. Paul Clayton's blog is drpaulclayton.eu. So find that. There's so much information. It's an incredible one.
So he helped to unlock that little paradox. And the paradox was, why were we seeing incredible health outcomes from people that were eating fish, but we weren't seeing those kind of results in clinical trials? So that was one of the paradoxes. And he said to me, when we were talking, he said, Stuart, he said, this is oily fish in liquid form. Now, I thought that was really cool. Some people say, oh, that sounds a little gross, but I love fish, right? This is oily fish in liquid form. He said, Stuart, it's an Inuit diet in a bottle. I thought, well, that's great. Most people don't know what that is, so I'm going to call it a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. And everyone's welcome to use that too. I've had a lot of clinicians say, wow, that I get, because we now know that we want the omega-3s of the Inuit diet and we want the polyphenols of the Mediterranean diet. Well, we've got that here together in one product.
I was just going to say, Dr. Collins said on the second to last call, I had an interview with him, because it is that diet. And some people have said, well, if you could eat fish to get enough of it to get into balance, that would be the absolute best. But actually, Dr. Collins said, I might even just say, because of the things in fish, that actually using a balanced product to get into balance is even better than eating your way there. Would you
I
agree?
actually agree with that now. I know we talked about that yesterday. It was a long time. I was not going to give up my sardines and my anchovies. I ate so much fish, I actually got a fish allergy because I just ate too much of it, right? And I still failed our test miserably.
Really?
Which again,
I don't know. Can we ask, what was your score?
13-1 was the first one.
What? You, the expert that's been doing training and global teaching around the world, was still 13.
In fact,
Wow.
my number one partner, my hero, and I hope when he gets to hear this, I get to work with Dr. Michael Lewis. He's just one of the greatest human beings that I've ever met. He's been a public health servant his entire life. He's the lead author on the omega-3 military suicide paper. I got to meet him at Nordic Naturals. He left the Army and was taking a job at DSM. At that time, it was called Martech, and that was the company that was putting algae-based DHA and arachidonic acid into infant baby formula. So anyway, he got out of the Army for this giant job, and they said, we've got good news and bad news. We sold the company to DSM for a lot of money, and the bad news is you don't have a job. So that he retired early for that. So then he became the top medical spokesperson for Nordic Naturals. And so I've got to know Mike for many, many, many years. He likes to be called Mike, MD, MPH, MBA. Very humble man. And he's not, I'm allowed to share this too. He also failed the test miserably.
Really?
Yeah, he did. So he wrote the book When Brains Collide, and he failed the test miserably. So in any case, there's one thing I forgot. I kind of want to go back to this for a second because I get kind of excited, Carla. In the Inuit paradox, there was another interesting thing. They didn't have scurvy. How did the Inuit not have scurvy if they weren't eating enough fruits and vegetables? Have you heard this before, Carla?
No, I'm sitting learning right along with everybody else here. Keep going. So
this is all what I've learned since Zinzino. So I want to thank our company for this, for taking me to graduate school, right? To postgraduate school. That the polyphenols in the olives that we use as a terrestrial analog to the marine web fluorotannins that are removed during distillation. I know that's a mouthful. Specifically hydroxytyrosol, right? One of the main polyphenols in olives that I knew nothing about at all. And I called one of the people who since became one of our partners who went to Bastyr, very smart guy. And he said, Stuart, hydroxytyrosol helps to turn on the genetic machinery for humans to make vitamin C endogenously. I said, I've never heard that before. I'd never even heard of hydroxytyrosol. So now I'm down this rabbit hole studying all this stuff, and I put it together. The Inuit may not have had scurvy because they were eating these foods that had bioaccumulated the polyphenols with the omega-3s, and the polyphenols help to turn on the genetic machinery for the human to make and recycle vitamin C in vivo, endogenously. Isn't that cool? So two of the paradoxes that I was always trying to figure out, why is it that fish oil isn't performing in clinical trials like we had expected? And I want us to please unpack that more. And why is it that... That's a big one, right? I want to unpack that more. And why is it that the Inuit didn't have scurvy? And when you go back, and I want everyone, if you can, look at the original paper in 1971, Bang and Dyerberg. If you don't know the story, the Danish scientists they looked at the Inuit, right? They were called Eskimo at the time. We don't call them that anymore. They're First Nation Inuit. And they found out that although they were eating all this whale blubber and all these animal products, and saturated fat, they had the lowest levels of coronary vascular disease that there were. And then they took that blood, they sent it back to Copenhagen, and they found these enormous peaks for EPA and DHA. They didn't even know what that was yet. Cod liver oil, old cod liver oil, was sold based on its vitamin D and vitamin A content. That's what they thought the active ingredient was. So like in the 1850s and 1830s, when they gave people cod liver oil, they didn't know it was omega-3. They just knew that it had some health promoting benefits in it. So they used to spike the old cod liver oil with vitamin A and vitamin D. In any case, when they tested the blood and found these huge peaks for EPA and DHA, in our reductionist thinking, we reduced it down to those two molecules. And I learned from Zinzino that two molecules, EPA and DHA, is not the same as eating oily fish in liquid form. And it's certainly not the same as a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. So I think that part of the reason why the omega-3 trials have sort of failed is because we aren't testing people at baseline. That's not part of the inclusion criteria. So just imagine this. You've got 8,000 people in a trial and you give them all a certain amount of omega-3. But what if some people have a very, very low omega-3 index and a high AA-EPA ratio, and other people are in balance? Can you see why not testing them at baseline might confound the results that we're seeing in these trials? So that's number one. And number two, the poorly formulated products. I mean, there's part of me that feels really guilty. And I'm not trying to assuage my guilt here, but I feel bad that I kept telling people, take this highly purified fish oil. Because what we're learning is highly purified fish oil may be depleting our body's endogenous antioxidants, like glutathione. It may be stable in the bottle, but it may not be so stable in the body. So I would strongly encourage everyone on the call to please read our original science. It's Fish, Polyphenols, and Physical Performance, the paper that was published in Sports Science by Paul Clayton and Linda Saga and Ola Edie. Do you know that publication, Carla?
Yeah. Yes. And for those of you who are partners, that's in the back office, so you can find it there.
Yeah, I want everybody to read that because he just lays it out. Bam, bam, bam. And then I started doing my own homework. And there's an incredible paper in, I think it's either in Molecules or Nutrients, but anyone can look it up. It's polyphenols and omega-3. And it basically says that the combination of these nutraceuticals can lead to a 3-fold increase in glutathione peroxidase. That's the enzyme that makes glutathione. And a 50 to 200% attenuation of common inflammatory biomarkers. So once again, the whole food is greater than the isolated molecules. This should not be a surprise to anybody. This should not be a surprise to anybody, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. Basically,
it is kind of bricks. I was just thinking, omega-3 here is the bricks of our body. And if you're building a brick house, you need a lot of bricks. So it makes sense. We need to have the best bricks. And it's not fish oil. Fish oil is not. So all these studies on fish oil, or some of them that are saying it's not working, that makes sense that it's not working if they're not using something that is the same as fish. And that's the difference of Zinzino. I think that's huge because it is the bricks of the brick house. You need to have good bricks.
It's so interesting you say that. When you ever get to see Colonel Dr. Michael Lewis, when he gives one of his big talks, and he just got included into the Zinzino medical and scientific and product advisory teams. Let's give a big round of applause to Dr. Michael Lewis. I'm glad that we have him on staff here now too, and he's building a business. But when you go to see one of his big talks, he uses the brick analogy. And he shows this wall, and then, it just blows up. And he says, if the brain, is let's imagine that it's a brick wall and there's a problem, you need to bring a whole ton of bricks, right? If it's deficient in omega-3, if it gets blown up. So it's interesting that you use that brick analogy.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me. If you're going to repair the brick wall, you need bricks. And, you want to use bricks that are working because, and that's what Zinzino does, is you're putting back your cell membrane is made up of this omega. You need that. You got 37 trillion of them. You need to make sure they're working. Healthy cells, healthy body. It's actually really simple. So let's talk a little bit about because with the science, and you hear sometimes people coming in and they're telling all these crazy stories. We have tons of incredible stories that just are, but maybe they even might embellish them a little bit. But to me, as you said something about like the truth, and I saw somebody in one of the comments here write something about the truth, but with the science that is backing up, being in balance, being in an omega-6, omega-3, as Art has been putting it out there, to have that balance, that truth alone is good enough. We don't need to embellish anything. We just
Right.
need to point.
No, you're
This
right. The truth is good enough. In fact, if you go to the highest level of clinical research in the omega-3 space, I hope we're all aware that there are two FDA-approved fish oil drugs. Did you know that, Carla?
No, what? Tell me.
Lovaza has been around for many years, and that's EPA and DHA. That's FDA approved to lower hypertriglyceridemia, elevated triglycerides. Then they put pure EPA through a trial, and that drug is called Vascepa. The Japanese have had one for many years called Epadel. So if you've got a conservative allopathic doctor that you're talking to, and she says, I'm not so sure about these dietary supplements, my first comment is, Doctor, are you aware of the fact that there are 3 FDA-approved fish oil drugs, 2 in the United States and 1 in Japan? They're gobsmacked. They have no idea. And then you point to the Reduce It trial, which was the big trial in the New England Journal of Medicine, multi-centered, 8,000 people, and listen to this, they gave 4,000 milligrams of EPA per day. That's a big dose. 4,000 milligrams of EPA per day. Now, mind you, that's not what we're doing. We're going to be the biggest preventative health company in the world. We're going to keep healthy people healthy. So we're on the right side of history and the right side of the law. But we can't ignore the fact that in a clinical trial with 8,000 people, they gave 4 grams of EPA. And listen to this. The patients in the trial, they all had an elevated risk. They were either had a heart attack or were type 2 diabetics. And they were all on statins. And they still had elevated triglycerides. So on top of standard of care, right? You're not allowed to deprive people of standard of care. Concomitantly, you add nutrition on top of standard of care. And by adding 4,000 milligrams for 4 years, they tracked a 25% reduction in major adverse coronary events called MACE. Now, when you look at the sub-analysis, and this is what I do at night for fun, my wife's watching Netflix and I'm reading PubMed papers all night long. When you look at the sub-analysis, they were able to dramatically bring down arachidonic acid and increase eicosapentaenoic acid. Does this sound similar? Let me say it again. In the big drug trial that proved that the right dose lowers major adverse coronary events 25% on top of standard of care, the mechanism of action was dramatically lowering omega-6 arachidonic acid and increasing omega-3 EPA. Does it sound similar? That is exactly, precisely what we are doing. So when I share that with physicians, when they see that, and then they look at the paper that Paul Clayton wrote, and then they go to zinzinotest.com. Do not miss this opportunity. We have real world data. And when you listen to Thomas Gunderson, and Carla, I was very lucky. I brought on some of these top omega-3 scientists. They flew me out to Norway in my first month. I don't know if you heard the story.
No, you tell us all. We want to hear it.
So I got to, I mean, now I look back on how lucky I was. I got to have dinner at Oren and Hildy's house. I got to go to Vitas Analytics Services and meet, Dr. Thomas Gunderson. It was an incredible.
But that makes sense. It just makes sense. I mean, with that background, it's not going to be every partner who, I just sign up somebody and we just take them all there. But when you have the background that you do, and for 30 years have been out there globally educating people, and coming into Zinzino feeling like, okay, now I'm the student, and to realize that what we've got our hands on it gives me I've been in Zinzino for 13 years now, and I have been super excited from the start because of what it did for my son. But to hear the stories along the way, even without all the science, that was enough for me. I didn't know all the science, and I wouldn't be able to repeat what you said, and yet I get to go out there and really make an impact in people's health.
And you know what's so beautiful? It's all about the test at the end of the day and this real world data. So I remember Dr. Gunderson, when I went there, I mean, he was expecting that Dr. Lewis and some of the other doctors would show up. He was like, I heard there were some serious scientists and doctors here, and they're all looking around. They're pointing at me. And so when he reminded me that we have done randomized control trials with what we call inclusion and exclusion criteria because we can't test the whole world. He said, but we can now. So I show that map, all of the physicians that we've brought into our team, that has been the most persuasive tool, that 1.5 million tests, real world data of before and after. So I brought a physician on the other day, very, very smart, actually from Minnesota. As you know, there's a hotbed of enthusiasm in Minnesota. You know that when I worked for Nordic, I used to go to the Wedge and Mastell's, right? If you know all of the co-ops, all the health food store co-ops that are in Minnesota, there's a hotbed of intelligentsia there. And so I was explaining to him the whole polyphenols, the chaperones, the increasing of bioavailability. This guy's way higher IQ than I have. And he said, Stuart, here's what I like about this. Even if we can't pinpoint with accuracy yet exactly what the mechanism is, we can't deny the test results. We cannot deny the test results. So why did I fail the test? And I was taking purified denatured fish oil. Why did Dr. Lewis fail the test and he was taking purified denatured fish oil? Because it wasn't the appropriate antioxidant and we weren't taking it based on our body weight. Wait a minute. What a rookie mistake. Now that is ridiculous. I look back on my errors here. We would give people the blood spot test, like Expo West. I'm sure you've heard of Expo West or Expo East. These are the biggest natural product shows in the world. And I would hand out all of these tests to all the retailers to win them over, show them my test results. And I said, next year I'm going to come back. We're going to have little paddles like at an auction. And this is when we were just doing, it was the Lands equation. It was a different number, but it was like the balance score. And I said, all I want you to do is write down on the paddle what your number is. So I'm going to come back next year. We're going to take the test and I want to see everybody's results. Carla, the next year I showed up, almost nobody took the test.
See?
I gave the test to executives at Whole Foods, GNC, and Vitamin Shop. I said, here's the test. Go home and take the test. Then I'd call them 6 months later. I say, did you take that test? Oh, you mean this test right here? It's on my shelf. I didn't take it. So when I say that what we're doing at Zinzino is not 10% better, it's 10 times better. It's the balance concept that Ola Edie created. And that interview that he did with Dr. Colin Robertson on the Mastermind Conversation, May 16th of last year, I remember the date. That should be a must-watch interview, don't you think? Because he says at the end of the interview something very provocative, that if you take the balance oil with a baseline based on your body weight and then test again in 120 days, you don't need to change your background diet. Now, don't you think that's more user-friendly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we want to change the world for our children. And what really made a difference for me was my 13-year-old son. Am I going to get him to change his diet?
No.
Absolutely not.
You're not.
So something for our kids, our grandkids, for absolutely everybody that's going to make such a difference. And I know you said preventative, but there's a lot of people who do have a lot of health issues because their body just isn't strong enough. And I think our bodies are made to heal themselves. They just need to have healthy cells to work. I mean, it's just a little machine. The machine needs to work, and we're not letting the machine work, right?
I love how compliant we are here, Carla. It's such a big deal to me personally because it's so easy to do this thing the wrong way. It's easy to do this the wrong way. And so I think people always get the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, confused with the Food and Drug Administration.
Mm.
The FDA, they only come in with badges and guns when people are in trouble. They're hurt, when something's hurting people. It's the FTC that says you can't make false and misleading claims. So if we have a fish oil drug that lowers major adverse coronary events 25% on top of standard of care, and the mechanism of action is getting a good omega-6-3 ratio, do you see where I'm going? We don't have to say anything.
It's the gray zone that we're going to have to play with here. But you know what? Again, the truth is good enough.
The truth is good enough.
Research, there's so much research that just says get into balance, not just for if you have issues, but
Right.
for whatever could be coming. So actually, Stuart, I've said this many times, and it actually moves me to say, because in my 13 years in Zinzino, I have heard story upon story that just moves me. But I think what moves me most, and I get a little teary-eyed over it, is the stories we'll never hear because they've gotten into balance, and we've been there to let them know about what Zinzino's doing.
Oh, I totally agree. And if we can keep healthy people healthy, which is what the FDA says our mandate is, that's never been harder. There's a disparity between health span and lifespan. Lifespan is actually going up. Every time I hear the standard American diet is killing everybody, I'm like, look at the actuary tables. It's actually not true. People are outliving their money, but they're sick younger. So we want to compress morbidity and mortality. So keeping healthy people healthy, I often point to, the slides that we have, that show the healthy cell or the unhealthy cell, that's got the thicky, rigid cell membrane. And when people ask me about a condition, I say, can you think about a condition? Can you think about a condition in which you would do better if your cells were all jammed up with saturated fats and cholesterol and they didn't have enough of their shear strength? This was a finding that came out about a year and a half ago. This is so exciting. They call this red blood cell with disuniformity. It's a measurement in the ICU. When you've got big red blood cells and little red blood cells, that's a bad sign. Well, they found out that when you are below, we're going to talk about the omega-3 index for a second. I know we always talk about the balance score, but they're both important. If you're below about 5.6 on the omega-3 index, your red blood cells, look at this, they're not flexible enough. Why? There are too many saturated fats. They're like broomsticks. The unsaturated fats are like slinkies with all those double bonds. If you've got a low omega-3 index, your red blood cells cannot become half of their size to get into your microcapillary, to carry oxygen and gases more effectively through the body. Do you see where I'm going?
So the omega-3 index is actually just as important or even more important than the balance?
No, they're equally as important. And here's what's so exciting. Equally as important. And here's what's exciting. I've looked at test results of people that were taking Nordic that had a good omega-3 index, but they didn't pass the balance score. Okay? The balance score is arachidonic acid and EPA, but that's a little technical. That's the omega-6-3 ratio. What I love so much about balanced product, I don't even like to call it an oil, I
don't call it fish oil. I don't call it omega-3. I call it a balanced product. Yep.
A balanced product. What I love so much about the balanced product is we will be able to help lower the arachidonic acid EPA ratio, the omega-6-3 ratio, taking you from the danger zone to the safe zone, like Art Jonak has taught us, while simultaneously increasing the omega-3 index. We get both of those indices into the safe zone, out of the red and into the green. And that's miraculous. I've seen one person in particular who had a good omega-3 index and a really poor omega-6-3 ratio get on our product, test again after 120 days. They had an even better omega-3 index, and then they had a 2-to-1 on their omega-6-3 ratio. So it's the most effective product I've ever seen.
Okay, so I love this. Now, but we're also a direct sales company. You started going, no direct sales. And I know sometimes when a doctor hears about this or other people, they look it up quickly and like, oh, it's direct sales. They're just, putting out, this wonder product like everybody else does. So what changed your mind in regards to direct sales on this?
Well, I think I had to learn that along the way. I was a little hesitant, although I was very fortunate. I think I hit diamond in my first 45 days because I had Mr. Larry Raskin as my sponsor and as my mentor, just, pushing me and pushing me. But when I started to see the results, when I started to see how excited people were about Zinzino and coming from retail and understanding the retail space my whole life, just doing the economics, I'll put my business hat on for a moment. This is a better value and a better price than any of the other omega-3 products. Just as it is.
Because they don't work. First of all, they don't work.
But seriously, but even if you go kind of just like on the shelf, like how, like this could sell off the shelf like wildfire. And I think what a lot of people don't appreciate that maybe I can help add to this is I've had many of my colleagues and peers say, "Oh my goodness, Stuart, what happened to you? You joined a network marketing company?" It's kind of like a little moment of trying to shame me a little bit. And I've said to my colleagues, I say, well, okay, here, let's say this is a $50 product. Okay. The wholesale price is $25. Then the master distributors, they're distributors, right, that are selling to the stores, and they get 25% off of the $25. Now the brokers get 10% of the wholesale price. The store wants a free fill, and they want co-op advertising. So if you actually do the math, if your $50 product on the shelf of Whole Foods, because it costs at least $1 for the bottle and the label and the fill, if your product costs more than about $3 to make, you go out of business. Think about that next time you're in a health food store. If a $50 product costs more than $3 to make, you go out of business. Where here, we can provide a product at the market price or better and have room to pay all of us and the shareholders. And that's reflected in the stock price. The reason I bought the stock at $6, I wish I would have gone all in. I had no idea.
And it's over 25 today in the
Incredible.
US.
And I show this to medical doctors, to scientists. I say, what does this stock chart tell you? And they sit there like, that's a good point. I say, just like the blood spot test tells you what's going on in the patient, the stock price is the test that tells you about the health of the company. And what does this tell you? The stock price tells me that test-based nutrition will replace guest-based nutrition, that celebrity influence is dead. And even the other day, when the Office of Dietary Supplements, did you catch this, Carla, made the first recommendation for omega-3, EPA or DHA? Did you see this on April 11th?
Tell me.
The Office of Dietary Supplements made their first recommendation. Listen to this. All women of childbearing age, all women of childbearing, that's a big statement, should take 250 to 1,000 milligrams of DHA a day. And we all laughed. Anybody that knows better laughed. It's so silly because if you're not testing, you're still guessing. And it's so similar to vitamin D. First, it was just in our milk, right? On the milk carton, what's vitamin D? It was on the lowest shelf of the health food store when I had a head full of hair because they said that's toxic, so don't take that vitamin D. Then they started testing everybody and found out they were deficient in vitamin D. So my point that I'm making is that the wild success of our company is reflected in the fact that we are on the zeitgeist. We are on the bleeding edge, and it's reflected in people are not going to continue taking supplements without testing. It's over. Celebrity endorsement is over. The other thing that the stock price tells me is that people are buying like this now. And hey, I was trying to build a television studio inside of Nordic Naturals to do just this. And when my sponsor pointed out, you wanted to go direct to consumer anyway, because that's where everything's going, why don't you build your own business? And I have to tell you, I've gone from being like skull and cross, like the cross, just stay away from me, to I'm like the most passionate about this model because it requires someone to share this with you.
But that's what makes a difference because, when you hear it from people, like, and trust. You open your ears to hear things because that's one thing I heard from Ola Ida. He's like, he made pages of ads and telling what revolutionary products this could be, but it doesn't make the same impact on me saying, look what it did to my son, to my family, who said, sign me up, right? So this has an impact, and we've got one more topic, and we've got like 8 minutes to talk about it. There's very little time here, Stuart. But I want to talk about how excited we are about where the future is, because Zinzino we haven't even got started in most countries. So what do you see as the future of what we're really doing here in Zinzino?
I see people's medicine cabinets, their supplement cabinets, filled with all of the personalized testing that they would need to take total control of their health. I see the test, to quote Paul Clayton as the Dr. Clayton, he says he called it the Gutenberg press. Did you catch it when he said that? Not too long ago? What does that mean? No more intercessor. You don't need to have a vein puncture to get access. It's your information, and staying healthy is your responsibility. And the cavalry is never coming from the top down. It's going to come from the bottom up. So I love the idea of seeing a cabinet of where my supplements used to be, all these supplements that I hoped that they would work with my vitamin D test, my A1C test, the balance test, the new tests that are coming that we're not supposed to talk about, right? All of the tests.
About it.
Because I went to Vitas Analytical Services and I saw it myself. They said, don't take pictures, okay? But there was a wall where they had every single biomarker in the human body, an entire wall of every biomarker.
And all of them, he says, I can test it all. And I mean, Thomas is also, this is an independent lab, and yet he's actually
so cool
about what Zinzino's doing.
And I asked him, I went there, Carla, when I started, I was like this, right? And I said to him, you work with the Max Planck Institute and Cambridge and Oxford. What are you doing with Zinzino? And I asked him that in front of all these people that were there. And he said, because Zinzino affects change. They make a huge difference in the world. And I had firsthand experience handing those tests out. People didn't take them. We didn't tell people to take a follow-up test in 120 days, and we didn't tell them to take it based on your body weight. So where's it going? We're going to have the tests, the functional tests that all doctors need that's actionable. The genetic information isn't always actionable, right? Look at 23andMe just went out of business. I was resistant to do that test. I didn't want to find out what kind of alleles I had, but what could I do about it? All of our tests are actionable. And then finally, the whole supplement line, I know we're running out of time. It is my favorite supplement line of all time. And I've been in the industry my whole life. When my Zinzino box comes, I am so excited. And I used to get all my products for free, Carla. We'd go to Expo West. I'd hand out all the Ultimate Omega, and everyone would give me my probiotics I now that know that don't work, and all kinds of other stuff that I would take. So I'm so excited about the future, and I'm also excited about the fact that we're looking at sustainable ways to maintain this. Because to get the whole world into balance, we're going to have other sources than just taking fish out of the sea. And I love that Zinzino is so committed to the health of our planet and the health of our children. And they're thinking 50, 100 years in the future. That's the kind of company I want to be with, that's thinking about the future.
And I love that too, because, as parent and a grandma, we want to leave the world a better place. And we know that no matter what people can do, you can't eat your way to that better health. You can't eat your way there. We need to do supplements, and we need to do it forever. Just getting into balance doesn't mean you stop there. And that's why we want people who are watching this. We don't need everybody to become a Zinzino partner. If people are watching this now, some people are on live here. We have people who are watching on the streaming, or if you're watching this as a recording that has uploaded up to YouTube, which we'll do, everybody should be watching this. Everybody should be hearing this. But we can have people who are just taking the products as customers or as a partner. You're going to pay the same no matter what. So it's totally up to you. And if you're a health professional, this is a way to get it out to the clients you already have and really make an impact.
That's what Dr. Lewis said really quick. He finally realized he has to duplicate himself, and he's going to duplicate himself through Zinzino. That's how he's going to duplicate himself.
Or we could do just like you did, Stuart, and everybody who is really wanting to make an impact, but also create that income. We haven't even started. There is so much potential in building a business also, but let everybody make their own choice because this has a bright future. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years, but I'm more excited about the next 13 years.
Oh, I just want to share this one thing before we run out of time. This is about the business stuff. I dedicated my life. I sold $1 billion worth of supplements. I had very little to show for it. That's kind of heartbreaking. My whole mission was to ease the suffering of others. And for the first time ever in my life, I can also help my family too, and help my wife and help my son and get this sort of time freedom. I've never been so excited to wake up in the morning every single day. We've got partners all over the world. I cannot believe that I made fun of this. I love being wrong. I've never been so happy to be wrong. And I can see at the rate that this is growing, with AI coming, and Orion keeps telling us about this, how many people are going to be looking for something like this. So I think we're going to be attracting incredible people into the industry. Professionals are going to be coming into the industry. And I can't believe it took me so long to get here.
Well, we're so grateful that you are. Your story is incredible, and I'm hoping this is going to be able to be used for people who are also trying to talk to the experts out there, because the truth is good enough, and we got the truth right here. But we're also the cutting edge company, taking a global issue and actually fixing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would be remiss. I hate to speak over you. I'd be remiss if I don't mention Xenobiotic just for a moment, because that is so important. It is so important. I see your buddy, the gut health expert. I didn't have my glasses on.
Her name is Lena. She's on
Lena. That is so important. Is so good. I mean, it's just an N of one, but I was getting like a flu the other day, and I this is just me. I take a lot of fiber. I'm a fiber freak, but I was only taking psyllium. So I was kind of missing it, right? I was creating my own dysbiosis by not having the right bugs to the right food to feed the bugs through the whole gut. Man, I was able to knock out something I was getting with the Xenobiotic, right? Before, I used to take all kinds of other things. I won't mention what they are, but I have to tell you, that product is incredible. And I heard Colin Robertson say in Houston that there's some evidence that it can also dramatically increase the bioavailability of the balance oil as well. So we have everybody on the Health Protocol Premium. Every single person gets on the Health Protocol Premium. That Viva product, that Afron product is out of this world. It's backed by 9 randomized control trials. I want everybody to know that. The hero ingredient there is backed by 9 randomized control trials. So the combination of that, right? We balance the omega-6-3 ratio. We balance the gram-positive and the gram-positive bacteria in the gut. With Extend, we balance the immune system. With Viva, we balance the mind. You don't need to be a supplement expert at all, right? Balance, 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 balance. But that Xenobiotic, I eat that stuff right out of a spoon. That is fantastic. If someone is not on Xenobiotic, and then the collagen, Dr. Colin Robertson said, take it right 10 days in a row. I take it every single day, right? Every single day. I'm not going to miss out on that. I'm too vain.
I know. And actually, to me, one of the biggest industries in the world is the anti-aging industry. And this is the best you can do for anti-aging. I feel like I'm reversing time. Now I'll be 57 here on Friday, and I am feeling better than I did 20 years ago, Stuart.
So one last one. I'm sorry to be a mic hog. One last one, because I'm sorry I took so much time with the science. But that revolutionary extra virgin olive oil, if you don't understand what we have there, go to consumerlab.com, and pay the money and get the olive oil report. The highest polyphenol content was 650. So the white label, which is the piquiol olives that come from Spain, this is 750. The premium and the black label and the olive oil and the Ascent, that's 2,650. This is all quantifiable, actionable stuff. So some people might think that olive oil is expensive. You're never going to find one that's that high. 2,650 milligrams and we have our own, the technology, if you've read about the technology, about how they make that in this closed loop system where it has the lowest level of what they call free fatty acids. So I used to think that great olive oil had to be bitter, the high polyphenolic stuff. No, 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 no. Our revolutionary extra virgin olive oil is not bitter and has the highest polyphenolic olive oil content. Here's a little hack. You can wash your face with it.
Oh, wow.
There's a little biohack. Wash your face with it because it'll also, I love the sun. I'm never going to stop being in the sun, right? They keep telling you, don't be in the sun. I'm going to be in the sun all the time. And I've been washing my face and my head with olive oil for 25 years. Well, that one is even better because all those polyphenols in there also help to protect you from UV damage as well. And then the phycosci, I'm drinking the phycosci every single day. I think you just go on and on. I can go through a bottle of that in like 3 or 4 days. That's the only spirulina that has standardized, in my experience, the phycocyanin. All the other spirulina I've taken for 30 years did not standardize the active ingredient. So that's why I get so jacked up about this. We have the best company, the best methodology, the best products, and the best leadership.
Period. And you can see that we're getting more and more. We're going to be cutting edge in every area. That's what we've got. And we've got all of these fantastic scientists behind each and every product. And so we bought up like 6 companies this last year, 14 months, and they're taking the best of the best. So now we own those fields with the olive trees, and
the Kornicki olives, yeah.
We're owning the science behind the radio or how
the
we're
bioreactors.
making the bioreactor. We're owning that science and the future of where they're planning on going, even though they said, I don't know how we're going to get there, but we're going to be, they have, the thought pattern is so far ahead. Dr. Paul Clayton, you just have to hear him for 5 minutes. You're like, okay, he is so far ahead of everybody else. Dr. Colin Robertson, so far ahead. And
His book is so good. Have you read his book? Have you read his new book?
Yeah. Absolutely. Made to Move. Loved it.
That,
or Dr. Paul.
Which is fantastic. But when I saw real quick, when I saw Dr. Colin Robertson in Houston on stage, if you've never seen him live, if anyone has never seen him live, oh my goodness, what a performance. I mean, not only is he smart and witty and entertaining, he's a force of nature. And that's, people resonate with that a lot.
Absolutely. And we might want to, we've touched everything else, Stuart. We're going to take an extra few minutes here just to say we have an annual event coming up. Everybody who is a partner should be there. And if people are looking to getting some more information about what Zinzino has to offer, they should be there. Okay. We need to, we're going to have you on again, Stuart. That's just how it is. Enjoyed the time with you. Enjoyed just picking your brain and sharing the story alone to get the word out. So thank you for taking your time to come on here, and we can feel your energy, how you are excited about what Zinzino is doing as a product, all the products, actually, what Zinzino is doing as a company, what the impact that Zinzino is making for people and the community that we have is all fantastic reasons to get involved in Zinzino one way or the other.
Carla, one last thing before I let you go. I know we're long, but I'd be remiss without thanking Art Napolitano and Stacy. Artie and Stacy, they've been such lovely leaders, and they've helped me tremendously. And my sponsor, Larry, I love you, Larry. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. And then Michael and Diane, who I work with on our team together, they've just been incredible mentors and partners to me. And this has just been the greatest experience so far of my life. And Carla, getting to know you more and getting to be on your show is a true privilege. Thank you very much.